All right, thanks, Ellen. It is 6:54, 73 degrees. It's time for my final thought. Now, yesterday, in a 5-4 decision, the Supreme Court ruled that Virginia's House Republicans did not have the legal right to challenge a decision stating that some of Virginia's legislative districts were racially gerrymandered. Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg wrote the majority opinion and was joined by Justices Clarence Thomas, Sonia Sotomayor, Alina Kagan, and Neil Gorsuch. Now, I commend Justice Thomas and Justice Gorsuch for being willing to put partisan politics aside in their decisions. Gerrymandering has been around almost as long as the Constitution itself. One of the first known instances was in 1788, when former Virginia Governor Patrick Henry persuaded the state legislature to remake the 5th Congressional District, forcing Henry's political enemy, James Madison, to run against James Monroe, a formidable opponent at the time. Now, Madison won anyway, eventually becoming the 4th president of the United States, with Monroe succeeding him as the 5th. Now, I get it. If you're not cheating, you're not trying, right? But this practice is especially insidious because the goal is to circumvent the will of the people. Politicians working in concert to silence the voices of their constituents. Now, in the years since it's been used specifically to disenfranchise black voters by spreading them across voting districts, leaving their numbers too small in any given district to elect their preferred candidates. Now, the process became known as racial gerrymandering, and the Voting Rights Act of 1965 prohibited this practice, which only made lawmakers get more creative in their efforts to keep black and brown people from voting against the candidates they want in office. Now, it's an absolute disgrace. In 2019, the country is still fighting to keep this from happening. That said, it's promising that even a right-leaning Supreme Court recognized and respected that gerrymandering is simply wrong. Let's hope this precedent holds when future cases reach the Supreme Court, as we can be sure politicians are not done trying. We're going to continue this conversation online. You guys have a beautiful Tuesday. Good to be back. And I mean that this time. Get up, DC.